Welcome to your Shadow channel. Now we will tell another chilling horror story. Tonight, we delve into the 3 true horror stories set in the eerie atmosphere of a nightclub's washroom. Are you ready to get scared? Let's begin. The first story is about the reflection that watched back. In the heart of the city, where the night never sleeps, stood the Midnight Mirage, a nightclub that was the epitome of urban legends. Its walls, drenched in pulsating neon lights, whispered tales of the uncanny. But none so chilling as the one about the women's washroom and its cursed mirror. The reflection that watched back was not just a story, it was an experience that left many questioning their sanity. Lina, a skeptic, found the tale laughable, until the night she decided to confront the myth. As the clock struck 12, Lina slipped away from the thumping bass of the dance floor and into the washroom. The air was cooler here, the music a distant echo. The mirror before her was old, its silvering flaked, giving the illusion of movement in the corners of her vision. She leaned in, her eyes locked with her own reflection. A moment passed, and then another. Just as she was about to scoff at the absurdity, she saw it, a shadowy figure looming behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing. No one. The washroom was empty. Turning back to the mirror, Lina's breath hitched. The figure was still there, its eyes dark hollows that seemed to pierce through her. It raised a hand, and Lina watched in horror as her own reflection did not mimic the movement. It was as if the figure in the mirror existed independently of her. "What do you want?" Lina's voice was barely a whisper, but the figure seemed to hear her. It brought its finger to its lips, a silent command for silence. Then, it pointed towards the last stall. Lina's instincts screamed at her to run, but she was drawn to the stall as if by an invisible thread. The door creaked open on its own, revealing darkness within. Lina stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind her. The lights flickered, and Lina saw the figure from the mirror standing before her, its face a blur. It reached out, and Lina felt a chill run down her spine. The figure's touch was cold, colder than death. "You are mine now," it whispered, its voice a cacophony of voices, old and young, male and female. Lina tried to scream, but no sound came out. She was trapped, her reflection now a permanent resident of the cursed mirror, while her essence faded into the entity that had claimed her. From that night on, the legend of the reflection that watched back grew. Patrons of the Midnight Mirage would often report seeing Lina's pleading eyes in the mirror, but only ever at the stroke of midnight. And so, the washroom remained a place of eerie fascination, a spot where the brave ventured for a thrill, and the wise stayed clear. For in the reflection, there was a world unknown, a realm of spirits that watched, waited, and sometimes, claimed the living for their own. The second story is about the last stall. In the neon-lit labyrinth of Club Labyrinth, nestled in a forgotten corner of the city, there was a tale that chilled even the most intrepid partygoers to their core. It was the story of the last stall in the women's washroom, a place where reality seemed to warp and twist into something sinister. The stall was always locked, its presence an enigma to the staff and a dare to the patrons. Whispers of a tragic past clung to it like cobwebs, tales of a woman who vanished within its confines, leaving behind nothing but a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the club's history. Mara, a newcomer to the club, scoffed at the stories. She was a realist, a skeptic. But as fate would have it, one night, nature called at the stroke of midnight, and curiosity led her to the forbidden stall. The door, which should have been locked, creaked open at her touch, revealing a space that seemed to stretch beyond the confines of the club. The tiles were cracked, the air stale, and the mirror on the wall was so fogged it seemed to hold a world of its own. Mara stepped inside, her heart pounding not with fear, but with the thrill of defying the legend. She locked the door behind her, and that's when the lights flickered out, plunging her into darkness. A soft sobbing filled the air, its source invisible in the pitch black. Mara's breath caught in her throat. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice betraying a hint of fear. The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence. Then, a voice, barely above a whisper, spoke her name. "Mara." She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling as she turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, and she gasped. The walls were no longer tiled but earthen, the floor beneath her feet not porcelain but dirt. The mirror was clear now, and in it, Mara saw not her own reflection but that of a woman, her eyes hollow with despair. "Help me," the woman mouthed, her voice a distant echo in Mara's mind. Mara reached out, her hand passing through the mirror as if it were water. She felt a cold grip on her wrist, pulling her into the mirror's depths. She screamed, but it was too late. The stall door swung open, revealing an empty room. The next day, Mara was nowhere to be found. The last stall remained locked, its mystery deepening. Some say if you listen closely, you can hear the faint echo of her scream, a permanent addition to the club's haunting melody. And so, the last stall became a place of morbid fascination, a reminder that some legends are rooted in truths too terrifying to comprehend. For in the heart of Club Labyrinth, reality is but a reflection, and reflections can hide nightmares. The third story is about the Faucet's Whisper. In the bustling heart of New Orleans, where jazz and jambalaya infused the air, there stood an old nightclub known as the Voodoo Lounge. Its reputation was as much for its spirited music as it was for the chilling tale of its men's washroom. The story went that the faucets whispered at night. Not the usual drip-drip of a leaky tap, but actual words, spoken in a voice as smooth as the blues and as cold as the grave. Eli, a local musician, had heard the whispers one night after his set. The club was winding down, and he'd gone to wash the sweat and smoke from his face. That's when he heard it, a voice, murmuring from the faucet. "Eli, don't play the devil's tune," it hissed. He laughed it off, attributing it to the bourbon and the late hour. But as he turned to leave, the faucet turned on by itself, gushing water that ran red as blood. The next night, Eli played his saxophone like a man possessed, notes soaring high and dipping low, a melody he'd never played before. The crowd was entranced, but as the final note quivered in the air, Eli collapsed, his life as extinguished as the last note of his song. They say the whispering faucet still speaks to those who listen after the witching hour. It speaks of lost souls and melodies that should never be played. And sometimes, when the moon is full and the night is thick with the promise of the unknown, you can hear the faint sound of a saxophone, playing a tune that chills the soul. So, if you ever find yourself in the Voodoo Lounge, heed the faucet's whisper, for some songs are not meant for mortal ears, and some whispers should never be ignored. These are just one of the many horror stories. There are many more out there, waiting to be discovered and told. Do you have any horror stories of your own? Share them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more spooky content. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Bye.